Good morning, H2O family. Welcome to the H2O live stream. Let's worship this morning. I want to move so you can move. Come and do what only you can do. I want to live in expectation of your kingdom breaking through.
I want to move so you can move. Come and do what only you can do. I want to live in expectation of your kingdom breaking through. My hands are open, my heart is free. Open the heavens, rain down on me, fall down on me. My hands are open, my heart is free. Open the heavens, rain down on me, fall down on me.
I want to come to you in boldness. By your power I receive. I want to live in expectations. With you I'll do greater things. 'Cause I believe in greater things. My hands are open, my heart is free. Open the heavens, rain down on me, fall down on me. My hands are open, my heart is free. Open the heavens, rain down on me, fall down on me. Till all that overwhelms is overwhelmed by you.
And every soul has seen what you can do. A holy visitation where everything is changing. And there's no empty spaces when you move. My hands are open, my heart is free. Open the heavens, rain down on me, fall down on me. My hands are open, my heart is free. Open the heavens, rain down on me, fall down on me. My hands are open, my heart is free. Open the heavens, rain down on me, fall down on me. My hands are open, my heart is free. Open the heavens, rain down on me, fall down on me. Rain down on me, fall down on me. Oh, how high would I climb mountains if the mountains were where you hide? Oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you grace the other side. Oh, how long have I chased rivers from lowly seas to where they rise, against the rush of grace descending from the source of its supply. 'Cause in the highlands and the
stop at nothing. You're just not that hard to find. I will praise you on the mountains. I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Whoa, whoa. Beneath your glory, does your kindness extend the path from where your feet rest on the sunrise to where you sweep the sinner's past? And oh, how fast would you come running if just to shadow me through the night? Trace my steps through all my failures and walk me out the other side. For who could dare ascend that mountain, that valleyed hill called Calvary, but for the one I call Good Shepherd, who like a lamb was slain for me. I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in the way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Whoa, whoa. Whatever I walk through, wherever I am, you're making move the mountains wherever I stand. And if ever I walk through the valley of death, I'll sing through the shadows my song of ascent. Whatever I walk through, wherever I am, you're making move the mountains wherever I stand. And if ever I walk through the valley of death, I'll sing through the shadows my song of ascent. My song of ascent. Whoa, whoa. My song of ascent. Whoa, whoa. From the gravest of all valleys come the pastures we call grace. A mighty river flowing upward from a deep but empty grave. I will praise you on the mountains, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same. Dear Lord, thank you for just being you, being good, being trustworthy.
knowing that you're good in the good times and the bad times, in the highlands and the heartaches. And just thank you for just being one to worship. And pray that you'll speak through Matt this morning. We'll be challenged. And in your name, amen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Olszewski. I am one of the pastors here at H2O Toledo. We're so glad you guys are joining us this morning. Just want to run through some quick announcements with you. First one that we always give is if you are new here, if you are tuning into our live stream for one of the first times, we have what we call a connection card. And this is an opportunity for you to get more connected into the things that we do here at H2O, but also getting connected with the people of H2O. And so if you are new, if you could go to our website, h2otoledo.org, you can hit the connect button, and then you can hit I'm new. And that'll get us all your information so we can get you connected into H2O. So on a weekly basis, we have still been gathering in person safely for what we call Life Group. So Monday through Thursday at 7 o'clock, in Rocket Hall, with the exception of Tuesdays, we're online in a Zoom life group. We're gathering to talk about Jesus, talk about the Bible, and learn about each other's lives. And so if you've never been to one of our life groups, we'd love for you to be there. But then also just encouraging you guys to keep attending to finish the semester off strong. We're about halfway through the semester, so we'd love for you guys to continue to meet at our life groups on a weekly basis. And then always to keep up to date with what we are doing here at H2O, you need to follow us on all of our socials. That is the easiest way for us to get announcements out to you during this time. And then also, if you're a podcast listener and you like listening to podcasts, we'd love for you to check out our weekly podcast that we get out every Wednesday. It's called Love Pod, Love Rockets. It is fun, it's informative, and we hope it also pushes you to grow in your faith. So check that out. And then finally, for the past 2 weeks, we've been raising money for Rocket Fuel, which is the on-campus food pantry. And you guys have been doing an amazing job. Thank you so much. But that is coming to an end as of midnight tonight. So if you have not given yet, we'd love for you to go to our website to help fight food insecurity on the University of Toledo's campus. So you can go to our website, h2otoledo.org, hit give, and then hit Rocket Fuel, and you are able to give to that campaign to help us partner with some students that really need some help. So that's all I have for announcements today. I'm going to have you say hi, and just for an answer that or a question that makes zero sense, maybe in the comments, tell everybody what your favorite thing about the sun is, because the sun is shining. All right? Go for it. All right, good morning again to everyone. Hey, before we kind of jump into this morning's message, I just want to say a couple things. First, again, I'm so proud of our church for the amount of money that we have raised over the past 2 weeks. We set an enormous goal of $5,000, and we are not going to come even close to that. And that is okay, because we set a goal that is way higher than what our church actually had the capacity to give. But it was a faith goal. It was, man, what if this happened? But it was never about the goal. It was always about your generosity. It was about H2O stepping up and leading the way and also becoming an integral part in partnering with Rocket Fuel on campus. It was about raising money so that they can have more food, maybe even better quality food at the food pantry for students. And so we did that. And again, if you haven't had a chance to give, if this is your first time hearing about it, we'd love for you to take that opportunity to give. And then second, we have a major announcement to give at the end of this morning. And so I can't wait to give that announcement. I can't wait to share with you some exciting things that can be starting potentially by next Sunday. So pumped about that. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I do want to jump into the final part of our series that we've been doing called In Exile. And this series has all been looking at the lives of people within the Bible, real life people, real life situations that we can relate to, or things that maybe happen to them that are so far-fetched that we can still take a lesson from it. But this is a series about people that have felt out of place. They felt uncomfortable, not like they were at home. They felt like foreigners, and oftentimes, really, they were foreigners. They were people that were plucked out of their own land by enemies who were controlling them, and they were taken to a land that was not theirs. They were in exile. And we've been learning all about these people and these people called prophets who have been declaring God's message, because that's what a prophet is. They are a messenger of God, and they tell the people, here's what we want you to know while you're in exile. And so we've been learning about what God, where he is, what he wants us to do when we're in exile, and how we should respond when we find ourselves in those situations. And so we designed the series in a certain way, purposely, to show you kind of a pattern, right? It was to show you a pattern throughout the series. Do you remember learning about patterns in school when you were little, right? There's an image that's going to be popping up on the screen right now, and it's showing a bunch of different patterns, or this is a worksheet that you would have gotten when you were a kid to help you understand that when you see a certain amount of triangles and then squares, what would come next? For you to be able to recognize that if there's a number pattern, what number is going to come next in the pattern? This is something that we all learned when we were kids. And these are visual patterns that you're looking at, but there are patterns that we see throughout the Bible. And the more that you read the Bible, the more you'll notice these patterns. But these patterns, they're not magical, they're not mysterious, they're not patterns that only some people can see. No, these are just like normal patterns that you would see in any type of literature. When you're reading something, you're going to notice that some people write with certain patterns, and this is what we see throughout the Bible. And so this pattern that we were taking notice of and that we were inserting into the Exile series is this: inward change results in outward action. Inward change, things that are going on inside of us, where God is starting to teach us and he's starting to invite us to consider a new way of life, and for us to consider what inside of us needs to change. That when we see that happen, when we see these changes within us, where God is prompting us and showing us what to do, we then have an outward action that follows that. That is a pattern you see throughout the whole Bible, is that something happens inward, something happens inside of people where God starts changing their hearts, and it results in some sort of outward action. Because God knows how life works best, and so he invites us to see that life, to change, and then to respond. And so we did that week after week, and we started out with week 1 where we talked about Jesus and how he cares for the outcast. He cares for the people that are in exile, that don't feel like they're at home, that feel uncomfortable and confused. And we talked about how Jesus cares for those people. And that's our story. That's us. So Jesus cares for us. So it's an inward invitation for us to know that Jesus cares and loves and wants to guide us and walk us through those things. And then week after week, we talked about the ins and the outs. So Ezekiel was about having a new heart, God giving us a new heart, which ultimately gives us an outward new purpose in life. And then Daniel, to trust God inwardly, to really believe that God is your protector, to really believe that God can guide you through whatever, even if that means you're being thrown into a fiery furnace, even if that means you're being thrown into a lion's den, that you're going to trust God. You're going to have this inward confidence that God can take care of you, which results in an outward obedience in trusting him. And then we had a two-parter for Jeremiah. And the inward part of Jeremiah, part 1, was take confidence in where you are, where God has planted you, and grow. And believe that even though the situation that you're in at that moment isn't the situation that you want to be in, you're not in the place that you want to be in, inwardly, God has an opportunity to help you grow. And then part 2 of that was, because now that you're in a place that you don't necessarily want to be, God has a mission and a purpose for you to seek the peace, the prosperity, and pray for the place that you're in. And that's how we started the whole partnership with the food pantry, Rocket Fuel. And then last week, Tom talked about the inward importance of how God's word, the Bible, from beginning to end, can change us from within. That when we hear it, that when we read it, that when we try to understand it and study it and know it, it changes us. God's words written to us change our heart internally. And so I want to finish this up this morning, because that's what we've covered so far. If you've missed any of it, you can go to our YouTube page and you can watch all the messages that are on there previously. But this week, I want to fast forward way past the prophets in the time of exile that the Israelites were in throughout most of the story that we were telling. I even want to fast forward to a time where Jesus has already been crucified. He's already risen from the dead. And shortly after all of this happens, after his crucifixion, after his raising from the dead, a direct result of all these things that Jesus did, it catapults and births the church. The church is born. The church is created, and the spread of Christianity is at its very early stages. And honestly, this was a very confusing time for people, even those who would consider themselves Christians, because the church was like nothing the world had ever seen. It was new, it was unique, it was revolutionary. The world had never seen how the church was treating people within the church and outside of the church. It was so out there, it was so opposite of how the world operated, and many thought, is this going to last? Like, this is probably just going to fade away. You know, because people have tried to rise up like this before, and they've just kind of disappeared. But there was something different about these people. They had witnessed Jesus' resurrection. They had witnessed his death on the cross. These people had power and purpose. So the church was unique, and they operated differently than everybody else did. And that's kind of what made Christians so crazy back then, because everything was about power back then. Everything was about your place in culture and society in the world. So if you were at the top of culture and society, you had a pretty good life. It was pretty cush. If you were at the bottom, life was going to be pretty much a struggle from beginning to end. There were those who were in, and there were those who were out. That's how the world worked. But the church was different. Were you a sinner and a social outcast? You were in. Were you rich? You were in. Were you poor? You were in. Were you sick, healthy, had a high position or had a low position within culture? You were in. Because back then, everybody had a lane. Everybody had a lane that they had to kind of stick to. Rich, poor, sick, healthy. And if you tried to get out of that lane and mix with the general population, people would stick you back in your lane. They would say, get back to where you belong. You don't belong in this lane. Get back to this one. So the church functioned differently. They threw all of that out the window. They said, that's not how God works. That's not how God's kingdom works. And that's not how we're going to function. And so if you were a Christian, you stuck out. You know, others that wouldn't identify themselves as Christians, they would often maybe see you, if you were a Christian, they would be like, that's a Christian. That's one of them. And this identification, even though it wasn't necessarily all bad, it often left Christians feeling like outcasts and exiles. They felt like they were on the outside of culture and society. They were that different and that radical. So if you remember me saying a couple weeks ago in one of my messages, I said this. I said, living a life of following Jesus is living a life of exile. I'm going to say that again. Living a life of following Jesus is living a life of exile. Meaning you are going to feel out of place. You are going to feel different because God has changed you from the inside, and that impacts the outward actions that you give and produce for the world because you're trusting that God knows how life works best. And you're trusting that those inward changes within you are going to produce a different outward action. So I want to transition into a book in the New Testament, a letter in the New Testament, written by a guy named Peter. And Peter was one of Jesus's disciples, and he was one of the most important early church leaders. And I want you to hear what he has to say. He says, "Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us." Okay, so I want to break this down a little bit. So let's take a look at that first part. He says, "Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles," meaning to those of you who stick out and don't feel at home, here is what I recommend. Here is what I urge you. It is really important. I want you to abstain from sinful desires. So avoid the sinful patterns that you see among you and what everyone else would consider normal. Avoid those sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Wow. Sin wages war against our souls. That's really strong language. It seems over the top, right? It seems like it's probably not that bad, but it's true. If we allow it, sin that is considered normal to everyone else, sinful desires that we have, they are actually actively impacting the depths of the soul that God gave us. The center of who God made us to be, the center of being created to know our God, who created us, it's being impacted. Our soul is being diminished. The center is being corrupted, which impacts our ability to be able to see God clearly. When our souls are taken over, sin wages war. And again, I know that is really strong language, but I want to take us through really quickly 2 areas of sin that I think wage war against us here currently today. I want to quickly just go through 2 things. And the first one is our pursuit of comfort. The sin of pursuing comfort. And I talked really briefly about this in an earlier message, but can I just be honest? This is the one that I struggle with the most. Like, I just want things to be comfortable. I want things to be in order. I want things to be nice. I don't want any disruptions. I don't want any surprises. I don't want any hurt. I don't want any disappointment. There's so much that comes into our lives that we just don't want, and we want to push away, and we want to ignore, and we want to push it to the side. And honestly, we've become a little bit allergic to struggle. We've become a little bit allergic to struggle because almost everything in our world that we can experience is conditioning us to want comfort. It's conditioning us to want comfort. Now, this is not me declaring my version of this generation is soft, right? You guys have heard that. People have said that over and over again. I talk to people that are in the older generations, and that is their critique of your generation and my generation. That we're just too comfortable. We don't know how to deal with struggle. And I actually don't believe that at all. I don't believe that that's true of your generation, my generation. But what I don't think people realize is that we are constantly being conditioned to be comfortable. Like, everything in our culture is pushing in the direction of you get it fast, you get it now, look at your phone. If you don't know the answer, look it up. I want to watch something. Everything is being geared towards this lane of be comfortable. And so it's not something that you can necessarily control because the culture is deciding that this is the direction that everything is going. And it all comes with a cost. And that cost is struggling to cope with struggle. We do have a difficult time. It doesn't mean we're soft. It doesn't mean we're lazy. It doesn't mean we should be embarrassed that we do struggle sometimes. It just means that our culture is constantly curating and conditioning us to feel comfortable. And so when pain and struggle come in, it is difficult to deal with. And that has been the whole point of this series, is to talk about that when we are in these exile moments, how do we deal with it? What does God have to say about it? And what are the ways that God has provided so that we can cope with these ways to struggle? You know, next week we're going to be starting a new series through the book of James. And the book of James is in the New Testament, so this is after Jesus. And actually, James is Jesus's half-brother. And he says some really hard things. He says some difficult things, on the same level as that sin wages war against our soul. And it's just one after another. And I want to share with you the first thing that he says. This is how he opens his letter. And we're not going to talk about this in the series of James, so I wanted to bring it in here. He says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." And let's just stop there, because that sounds like something someone would say where I'd want to punch them in the face immediately. Like, you are so annoying, okay? "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Perseverance is a process. It's a work that must be finished so that we can grow in maturity. So it takes time, it takes practice, it takes experience. So when we have a choice of comfort or perseverance, James is saying choose perseverance because your faith grows in God. You're able to mature and you're able to handle the next struggle differently because you've chosen the path of persevere, not just to push it away and find a way to get comfortable. So James is saying choose perseverance. So not a very well kept secret, but We actually live stream in a karate dojo here in Toledo. If this is the first time you've heard this, surprise, we are in a karate dojo. Daniel and Sarah Turner, who own this karate studio, they have graciously allowed us to use their space. And I was actually reminiscing with them the other day about how I knew we were in the right place with my son when we first brought him here. My son is 15 now. He's a black belt, got his black belt here at Karate America, but he first came here in first grade. And I knew we were in the right place because I went to Landon's karate class one day. And again, he's first grade, so he's like 6, 7 years old. This is like some of the youngest kids in the whole school. And Mr. Turner stopped class, and he walked towards the parents, and he said, "Hey parents, I want you to listen up. We're about to do an activity with your kids, and some of you, this is going to be really hard to watch, and I can promise you that some of your kids will cry, and I can promise you that some of your kids may get hurt, but I promise you that they're safe, and I promise you this is an opportunity for you to be able to talk to them, that they don't need to be afraid, and that this is something hard that they're going to do, and that these hard things, they don't need to push them away, and they don't need to ignore them. That you have an opportunity to speak to them." So he addressed all of the parents. I was like, oh my goodness, what is about to happen? So then he goes back to the kids. And he says, "Listen up, kids. We're going to do something. And it's kind of like musical chairs." And there was about 10 kids. And he lined them up on the outside of the karate mats. And he says, "I'm going to put 9 of these pads out on the floor. And there's 10 of you. And what I want you to do, when I say go, is I want you to fight and do whatever you can to get one of those pads and bring them back to where you were starting." It says, "I want you to be aggressive, but I want you to be controlled. If you need to pull someone, if you need to push someone to get a pad, there's no punching, there's no kicking, but I want you to be aggressive, and I want you to go after these pads." And I'm just like, this is awesome. And they go, and you see these kids wrestling, and you see these kids fighting for these pads. And round after round, you see more kids get out because there's only enough pads for 9 kids when there's 10 of them. So each round, there's more kids getting out. And sure enough, kids are crying, and they're going to their parents. And sure enough, kids are getting hurt, and they're going to their parents. But I love the way that Mr. Turner set everybody up for this. That he looked at the parents and he said, these are hard things. What they are about to do might be above what they are comfortable with. Isn't that what we need in life? To be able to look at these opportunities where this is so hard. I don't know how I'm going to handle this. I don't know how I'm going to push through this. But Mr. Turner taught persevere. Mr. Turner taught things in life are going to be hard. Be ready and learn how to deal with that. I thought it was a great lesson, and I knew that we were in the right place. So choose perseverance rather than the sin of comfort. And that even seems weird to say, the sin of comfort. But I really want us to consider to choose perseverance. Okay, second, the other sin that wages war against our souls is sex. Okay, now some of you are like, quick, turn it off before he says we can't have sex before we are married, right? Just turn it off. I don't want to hear that. And it'll be over soon, okay? We'll get through this together. Because that seems like old thinking, right? It seems old-fashioned, or it even seems impossible. Like, really? We're supposed to wait? We're supposed to wait to experience this until we're married? It doesn't even seem possible to do, because the body wants what the body wants, Matt. That's what we hear. Or maybe for some of you, the only reason you've been given as to why you shouldn't have sex before you're married is because God said so and the Bible says so. Not super convincing, right? Like, those aren't the most convincing arguments. So real quick, I want to provide you with an answer as to why. But first I want to read through a passage. This time it's from a guy named Paul, who was also another extraordinary leader in the early church. Okay? So this is what he says in his letter to the Thessalonians. He says, "It is God's will that you should be sanctified," which is really just a fancy word for maturing in your faith to become more like Jesus. "It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality." So avoid treating sex different than it was created to be. "That each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the pagans," which is an old term for those who do not know God, which is how he finishes it. "Not in passionate lust like the pagans who do not know God." So how is sex treated differently than it was created to be? Well, first, sex has become more about being a thing that we experience rather than a person to experience. Sex has become a thing. A thing. Sex is not a thing. Sex is about another person that God created. And so when we treat sex as a thing to experience, then it makes sex a higher priority in the relationship than it was ever intended. Because the ultimate goal in our dating relationships, before marriage and even after we are married, the goal of all relationships that we have is intimacy. The goal is intimacy. And too often we equate sex with intimacy. We think they go hand in hand. They're an equal equation. It's not an equal equation. Sex is part of intimacy. It does not equal intimacy. So what is intimacy? Here's how I would define it. It's knowing someone and being fully known without fear of rejection or the other person leaving. I want to say that again. It's knowing someone and being fully known without fear of rejection or the other person leaving. So waiting until you are married to have sex paves the way for true intimacy. Because being fully known without fear of rejection or the other person leaving, that is the best place to start a marriage, where sex now becomes part of the relationship. Doesn't that sound great? No fear, no rejection, two people completely trusting one another. And that when they hold off, when they say, "I haven't fully committed myself to you because I don't know if I want to marry you, I don't know if I want to be in a lifelong relationship with you," but then when that happens, that means no fear. Or at least that's what it should be. No fear of rejection. No fear of the person leaving. That is why God established sex to be reserved for marriage. For people that are committed to not leaving one another. Committed to being in a relationship where true intimacy is experienced. But when you're dating, the whole goal is to reach true intimacy, which leads to marriage, which then leads to having the ability to have a sexual relationship. That is why God has reserved it for marriage only, so that you can know what true intimacy is. So these are two, I think, really big areas that are waging war against our souls. And so both of these things we just discussed, they are internal. They are changes that need to be made within. God will transform you from the inside kind of changes. But these changes aren't just for you. They will benefit you, They will make your life better because this is how God designed your life, to not live a life of comfort and to not live a life where sex is treated differently than it was created to be. They are not just for you, even though they will benefit you, because I want us to go back to Peter. So after Peter says to stay away from sin that wages war against our soul, he says this: live such good lives among the pagans, again, people that don't believe in God, that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. So when we stick out, when we decide to make different choices, others take notice. When we choose perseverance, others take notice. When we choose to protect the original design of sex in our relationships, others take notice. They're interested. They're like, so why are you doing this? What's the whole point? And our hope is that when they take notice, they notice God within us. They see God within us and how he has changed us and how our outward actions are different. Because how we live matters. But here's how I want to finish. Because I know those two things that I just talked about that wage war on our souls, those can be pretty heavy and shameful if we haven't lived up to that, if we've made those mistakes already. And that's where God's grace fits in. That's where we need God's grace, because even though internally changes have made that we're seeing that lead to outward actions, maybe our lives are already starting to change because God is starting to change our lives, we don't always get it right. Sometimes we fall short. We give in to those sinful desires, and that is why we need Jesus. Jesus' death, that's what it means. That is his sacrifice. That is his offer of grace to all of us. He has a standard of where he wants us to live according to his ways, but he also knows, I love you so much that I know that you can't do that. You won't do that. The only person that was able to get it right was Jesus. And so he was the only one that was capable of making the sacrifice and dying on the cross for our sin. He was the perfect sacrifice. And because he loved us so much, he was willing to do it. He didn't say, look at those screw-ups. Not worth it. Not going to do it. No, he did it knowing that the world was already in a world of chaos and mess and sin. And he knew that that was just going to continue. Yet he said, I love you. That's what we celebrate. That when we are exiles, when we feel like exiles, we're right back where we started the series. Jesus cares for us, and he loves us. When we feel out of place, when we feel like we've given into sin, when we feel like we're uncomfortable, we feel like we're not in our home, Jesus says, come to me. I love you. I'll show you a new way. I'll show you a different way. I'll help you up when you fall and you don't follow my way. And that's what we're celebrating here as we finish up this series. And so I want to pray for all of you and just pray that we continue to trust Jesus as we live in this life of exile. God, thank you. You're so good. That as sin wages war on our souls, God, you made a way for us to fight against it. You made a way for us to choose a different way. And that's so good. Sometimes we feel trapped. Sometimes we feel alone. Sometimes we feel out of place. Yet, God, you say, I'm with you, and I care for you, and I love you. And you proved it by taking the death on the cross that we deserved. So thank you so much. Let us know and understand what it means to live as an exile. but let us also know the truth and the freedom of what it looks like to trust you as an exile. We love you, God, and we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hold me now in the hands that created the heavens. Find me now where the grace runs as deep as your scars. You pulled me from the clay, set me on a rock, called me by your name, made my heart whole again, lifted up, and my knees know it's all for your glory, that I might stand with more reasons to sing than to fear. You pulled me from the clay, set me on a rock, called me by your name, made my heart whole again. Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, and you love my whole heart through. Sin has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds me now. And that grace holds the ground where the grave did. For all my shame remains left for dead in your wake. You crashed those age-old gates. You left no stone unturned. You stepped out of that grave and shouldered me all the way. Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, and you love my whole heart through. Sin has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds me now. Healed and forgiven. Look where my chains are now. Death has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds that ground. And your grace holds me now. 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 Healed and forgiven. Look where my chains are now. Death has no hold on me. 'Cause your grace holds that ground. And your grace holds me now. 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 Who is the great King of glory, seated on high in the heavens? Oh, Jesus, you alone. You are the Lord God Almighty, strong in compassion and mercy. Oh, Jesus, you alone. And I've searched the world for a love that could fill my heart. Oh, but nothing compares to the wonder of who you are. Holy, all the earth singing holy, all the angels cry holy. Jesus, you alone. Jesus, you alone. You set the stars in the heavens. You set the world into motion. Oh, Jesus, you alone. You breathed your life in creation. You walked among your created. Oh, Jesus, you alone. I've searched the world for a love that could fill my heart. Oh, and nothing compares to the wonder of who you are. Holy, all the earth singing holy, all the angels cry holy. Jesus, you alone. Worthy, all creation sings worthy, all the heavens exalt thee. Jesus, you alone. Jesus, you alone. You shed your blood for salvation. You broke the curse for our freedom. Oh, Jesus, you alone. You rose from death in the morning. You'll come again in your glory. Oh, Jesus, you alone. Oh, Jesus, you alone. Holy, all the earth singing holy, all the angels cry holy. Jesus,
That was awesome. Well, again, thank you for joining us. Some quick announcements before I get to my major announcement. First, if you still want to give to Rocket Fuel Food Pantry, please go ahead and go to our website, h2otoledo.org, and hit give, hit Rocket Fuel, and you can give. For those of you that have raised money through your own personal Venmos, we'll let you know and give you directions on where to direct that money at some point in the next few days. Now, finally, our major announcement, okay? All right, you guys ready for this? You ready for this? Okay, here we go. We have not met in person for over a year since the pandemic hit, and the university just this week gave us permission to meet outside on campus starting next Sunday. Come on! However, there is a caveat to that, okay? We need weather to cooperate, okay? So here's the plan moving forward. Starting next Sunday, you will see on social media or some sort of announcement outlet that we will provide, we are going to let you know by Saturday night or early Sunday morning if we will be meeting in person in the Flatlands on campus at 11:30 a.m. Okay? If weather cooperates, we will meet there. If it doesn't cooperate, we will be live streaming right here. That is how we are going to deal with the rest of the school year. Weather good on campus, weather bad right here. All right, we'll give you some details later this week in a video about what you should expect when we meet in person, because there will be some stipulations. But we are so pumped, okay? So we are praying for good weather. We are looking at the weather before service. It looks pretty good, but we'll see what the heck happens, all right? It's going to be a fun week. All right, thank you so much. We cannot wait to see you in person so you guys can experience live worship. It sounds awesome here. We know it's a different experience through the TV or the computer. Still great. We love you guys. We'll see you next week. See ya.
I need you more than that.